The Overwhelm is Optional podcast is for you if you want to quit the struggle with overwhelm. You want to live life to the full. You don't want to compromise your health and relationships in order to have well-paid, satisfying, meaningful work. You want it all on your terms. Hello, it's Heidi. Welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, making overwhelm optional for you because overwhelm is no way to live. Trying to chug all your thinking through the blockade and fog and heaviness of overwhelm is a nonsense, and we need to stop, and we need to learn how to look after ourselves better and how to fly the ship, basically. So your mind's not designed to function through overwhelm. And that's a whole nother story, which I'm not going to go back into now. But what I am going to go into is why you might choose to stick with the overwhelm. So despite me teaching on this podcast, through free workshops, all over the show, that overwhelm is optional and how to make it optional for you, you might still decide to stick with the overwhelm. That's what we're talking about this week. And if you're thinking that sounds insane and nobody in their right mind would do it, stop right there, because that's a little bit harsh. So obviously there's a spectrum of this. So it's not like, oh, all of the pre-listeners are wandering around in overwhelm because they just don't know a big secret. And all of those who listen to the podcast or work with me, and myself included, are like free of overwhelm because we know the big secret. No. That's not very nice. No, there's definitely a spectrum, isn't there? So it's a constant commitment to say, oh yeah, I don't do overwhelm, so I seem to be getting overwhelmed in this area of my life, I'm going to do something about it. But there is a difference between people, and I include myself in this very much so, when we're completely overwhelmed and we have no idea that we're overwhelmed. That's definitely where I was. I didn't know it was overwhelm. I don't think I'd have Googled overwhelm. In fact, I definitely didn't Google overwhelm. I don't know. I probably Googled stress. I don't know what else I Googled in those days. And I do know that a lot of you come to me by Googling overwhelm. But I genuinely had no idea. So you're probably much ahead of the game, further ahead than I was, because I thought I was just kicking ass and, coping with an incredibly full life and winning before crashing and burning embarrassingly. Anyway, so there's definitely an awareness thing once you understand, it's overwhelm that's the problem. But after that, it's a commitment to making it optional to you. And that takes new skills, new perspectives, and quite frankly, I believe support. It's really, really hard to do it on your own, because it's like, it becomes this, is it really true? Can I really, really do it? And it just takes proper consistency, and it's just easier with support. But anyway, as I go through the reasons why you might decide to just sit in the overwhelm, hopefully that will give you some insight into what you're doing at the moment and what you might want to do, what's like the easiest thing to make your life a little bit easier by just committing a tiny bit and then a tiny bit more to making overwhelm optional for you. Anyway, let's do this. So number one is, these are the reasons why you might choose to stick with the overwhelm, is you don't really believe me. So it sounds nice and you enjoy listening to my podcast, and my voice is to you soothing and welcome, and it resonates and it makes you feel heard and understood and like, thank God somebody gets me. But you still don't quite believe that overwhelm can be optional, because everywhere you look, everybody's overwhelmed, and everybody says that you have to be stressed and overwhelmed if you want a full life. And that's just the way things are. So it's not surprising that there could be that this is true for you, or parts of it are true for you, and that you're willing to just say, oh well, it's all right for Heidi, but actually it's not really optional. She's just lucky, or she's just a wishful thinker, or I don't know, anything like that. And I don't mean you're thinking about that unkindly with me, but it's easy, isn't it, to think, well, it's okay for that person but not for me, which brings me on to number 2. You don't believe it's possible for you. So first of all, you don't believe it's actually really possible, and then secondly, even if it's possible for me and my clients, it's not possible for you because you're just not very good at following through, or you're particularly prone to overwhelm, or at this point in your life there's just no way that you could deal with the overwhelm because you're too overwhelmed to deal with it. And this would be despite the fact that I specialize in creating resources for exactly you at this point in your life. So if you're in that kind of way of thinking, like, well, it's not possible for me, then that's you holding on to that, despite me inventing tools to be used without adding to your overwhelm that help you make overwhelm optional for you in the midst of extreme overwhelm. For example, like the 1 minute mark. So the 1 minute mark is a 1 minute audio that gets you out of overwhelm immediately, and you get it for free when you join my mailing list. And then after you download it, you get 3 emails which support you in using it to start making overwhelm optional for you. Now, this is a huge gift, which I really think I need to do another kind of like blowing its trumpet on, because, well, I was reminded recently by a lovely friend and colleague who was really struggling with overwhelm, and she hadn't asked for any help. So I just tentatively said, look, I know you haven't asked for any help, but I specialise in overwhelm, so here's my 1 minute audio. And she loved it. And I didn't realise how much she loved it because I didn't hear back, because I think it was like a Friday night. And then recently she's said that I've really, really helped her. And so that audio is really, really powerful. And I have forgotten how powerful it is because it's in all of my work all the time. It's my go-to audio. It's come out of my work to shine, and I love it. So if you're still doing the overwhelm might be a little bit optional, but not for me, despite me offering these things, then I would pick you up on that and say, don't be so mean to yourself. And if you've done the other thing where you signed up for the 1 minute mark and then you haven't really integrated it into your life, then I'd say, once again, we'll give yourself a break and start using it again. It's that simple. It's because it's not that the overwhelm can't be optional for you. It's that you have to decide that it is, which is why I'm picking you up gently, I hope, gently but firmly, on some deep-seated beliefs that I've noticed people can hang on to until they start to see the shift. Because sometimes we just have to trust. Yeah, this sounds possible. Ooh, let's be curious, rather than, oh, it sounds really nice, but I'm too exhausted to do anything about it. And then choosing to sit in it. So this episode is to help you gently but firmly understand where you're placing yourself and that you have options. And I'd really, really like you to believe me and take those options. So the third one is, you don't believe that you can have a life without overwhelm and everything else that you want. So this feels risky. Now, this is related to the idea that if only you didn't want so much, you wouldn't be so overwhelmed. That the amount of overwhelm in your life is completely related to your wanting a full life. And that therefore, because you've connected those two things, and because you have been raised to believe that in order to have what you want requires huge amounts of pushing through overwhelm. It requires the sacrifice of your peace of mind. It requires sleepless nights. It requires an inability to be present with those you love and to really be enjoying your life. Everything has to be postponed in order to have these huge dreams. Now, these huge dreams, I'm not talking about like international speaker dreams. I'm talking about people who want a home they love, like a really nice home, not settling home. Like, it's a stretch to have that. So you work hard for that home. A career or a business, which is hard work to get to. So you've worked harder than most people. A relationship, which is good and nourishing. So you're not settling. There's a lot of not settling here. Can you see? So it can feel like, because you're not settling, because you're not doing what often we're told to do. Well, if you didn't want so much, what, you're making too much fuss, or you just expect too much out of life. If you didn't want so much, then you wouldn't be so stressed. I think that's quite a common response. It's like you want too much. If you weren't so sensitive, then maybe you're just not the kind of person who can have what you want, because you'll just obviously get too stressed. That really, I'm finding it hard not to be cross about that, because I know that was said to me. Like, if you just settled for less, you wouldn't be so difficult. You wouldn't be so stressed. No. You do not want too much. You do not want too much. And overwhelm isn't part and parcel of that. It's just not. It feels like it is. And it can feel like in order to have what you want, you have to just accept that. But that's not true. And I know this. I know this from my own life, and I know this from my clients' lives, because I geek out on this stuff. So just entertain for now, if you can, the idea that you can disconnect the wanting a lot and having to have overwhelm, and that you get to have both. You get to make overwhelm optional for you, so that you can have a clear head, think properly, be yourself, relax, feel at home in your life. Take time off without having to think about all of the things you need to get done and all of the problems that need to be solved for the world, and still have the rocking relationship, the great kids, the dog that you really wanted, all of the things you get to. But you are going to have to start with the idea that actually that's true. And if that feels hard, that's okay. But it doesn't mean just because it feels hard that it's not true. It just feels hard because you're being told the opposite all the time. So just noticing what comes up for you with that. And then next, you're not willing to really commit to learning how to make overwhelm optional. And this one is closely related to my last one, which is you think it will require too much from you. So these are completely related, because if you think it's going to require too much, then you're not going to fully commit. And the other part of not fully committing is not really believing it's possible for you. So this kind of rounds the whole thing up, doesn't it? So if you're not really committing, if you're like, I love your podcast and it just makes me feel better, and some of it, sometimes I listen to an episode and then it's like the overwhelm goes and I'm like, woohoo, and then it all comes back again. So if you're kind of going in and out of it, you're not really committing to making it optional for you. Just notice that. Don't add to your overwhelm with thoughts of, I must listen to that episode. I must download the 1 minute marker. Don't start adding to your to-do list. Don't start adding to your get better at list. If I was more committed, I need to make sure I do this. I'll add that to my self-care list. No. Just notice completely neutrally. Is it true for you that despite secretly, deep down, really wishing that you could make overwhelm optional for you, you're not really committed to doing it? Just notice it without judgment. You can, and then notice the judgment as well without judgment. So just keep neutrally noticing all the stuff that comes up for you. And if you want to take this a bit further, you could journal it out. Sit in the garden in the sunshine for 5 minutes and just really explore it. Or don't write it out, just sit in the garden for 5 minutes and explore it by daydreaming. What would it be like for you if you did make overwhelm optional? And by that I mean making overwhelm optional means that you learn the skills to make it optional. So you learn the skill of getting out of overwhelm fast, and noticing when you are getting overwhelmed and doing something about it before it gets to that life crushing stage, or when it gets to that life crushing stage, acknowledging it and doing the 1 minute mark or whatever works for you. So imagine how wonderful it would be to not have overwhelm, to have the skills to look after your mind better. That takes commitment. So noticing what comes up for you. What are the, but I couldn't because just notice them all completely neutrally. Just see what's going on for you in this moment as I raise all of these blocks that you may secretly be harbouring. So I'm just going to run through those ones again, and you can just notice what comes up. Neutrally, kindly, curiously. Ready? So these are the 5 reasons why you might choose to stick with the overwhelm. You don't really believe me when I say overwhelm is optional. You don't believe it's possible for you personally. You don't believe that you can have a life without overwhelm and have all of the wonderful things that you want. You're not willing to really commit to learning how to make it optional. So you're not willing to learn the skills. You think it will require too much from you. Like too much time, too much energy, too much commitment, too much overwhelm. So I'd love to know what comes up for you. Sorry, it's sucking a cough sweet, making strange noises there. Apologies. I'd really, really love your feedback on this because I'd like to do some episodes overcoming some of these to make it easier for you, because it's obviously my mission to make overwhelm optional. It's really, really important as humans, particularly the lovely, lovely, genuine, heart-led humans who come into my world, who are my people. It's really important that we learn how to fly this ship, that we learn how to live lives that work for us. This is really, really important. So I'm not going to go into the state of the human race. I think that it's very, very easy at any point in history to get into fear-mongering and the state of the world. I don't find that particularly helpful. I think I know that if you look back through history, there have always been people calling the end of the world. And the Buddhists say that the world is always on fire. So apparently, I'm not going to go into the state of the world because I don't find that's going to be helpful for this episode. But I would say that because of the nature of the world feeling smaller, whether that's actually true or not, but the echo chambers of media and social media and Google and just the internet basically has created this bizarreness in the world where it feels like everything terrible is all coming together. Now, outside of the internet, this is probably not true. So there's a lot of it's a complex time for the human mind, because the internet is just that's only really involves the human mind. It's this like disembodied nature of us, where if we switch off the internet and go outside into the garden, get out of our heads into our bodies, a lot of the issues of the world for the majority of us kind of can disappear for a moment. And then if you go back on the internet, you see this terrible, terrible apocalyptic nature of the world, which you're powerless to do anything about, really. So for this reason, not because I believe that the world is apocalyptic, but because of the nature of technology and what the damage that it's doing to us, I do think it is particularly an excellent time for learning how your mind works and how the nervous system being constantly triggered by that technology, by the way that the world is kind of appearing to be run, and the damage that does to us and our health and our happiness. I think that very severe creation of overwhelm by the internet, that just makes me not go, it's essential that you learn these skills, but it clearly underlines that, as in any point in history, but particularly now for us, learning how to nourish your mind is essential. It's essential. It's a joy. It's powerful. It enables you to gently rebel against all of that doom and fear and the feeling of powerlessness back into the connection of yourself and each other as big-hearted, wonderful human beings who love themselves, each other, the planet, plants, animals, nature. There's so much goodness in the world which is blocked by both overwhelm and particularly by tech-induced overwhelm. So it was getting a little bit political for me. I don't like to do that because I don't think it's helpful. Not that I don't have political views, but because my concern is with keeping a message of clear love and empowerment, because I love humans and I love the world, and I believe wholeheartedly there is so much goodness, so much love, so much kindness here for you, for us all, particularly when we make overwhelm optional, because it stops us being swayed into things that aren't good for us. It stops us damaging our health. It stops us being constantly stressed. It stops us missing the good stuff. It stops us misconnecting to people. Overwhelm is just not good for us. So my mission is to make overwhelm optional for you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. What's next for you? If you're realizing that, yes, really and truly, you could be taking overwhelm a bit more seriously, then I invite you to listen to episodes of my podcast, Have a Browse Through, where it gives you clear little tools to implement, or go to my website, www.heidimark.co.uk. It's heidimark.co.uk. And you can get the 1 minute mark for free when you sign up for my mailing list. I would strongly recommend you just put it on the front of your phone, and then use the 3 emails to help support you in making that a part of your daily life. That's how it works best, and that takes commitment. Secondly, if you need to restart with the 1 minute mark and you've lost your copy, apparently, I don't know why, but apparently it won't let you. You could go through again on the mailing list with a different email and then just cancel one of the email things. Otherwise, you can message me. You can either email me at heidi@heidimark.co.uk, or the quickest way to message me is on Instagram, because I don't deal with Facebook Messenger. Too overwhelming. So you can do that, and I will explain that you used to have the 1 minute mark, but you've lost it, and then I will send you another copy. But it's probably easier to do it just with a different email address, because then you'll get the 3 emails to support you. I have recently updated them to hopefully make them more powerful. Or you can come and work with me. It's the fastest way to make overwhelm optional for you and get your life back. Get your life back. If you've been waiting for that and wondering when it's going to be reopening, it will be reopening soon. The only way to join will be by having a chat, because that's how it works best. I just gather a group of lovely, like-minded people together, and I personally coach you through the 12-week bootcamp bit, which is fast and wonderful and goes deep, but not in a horrible way, in a really empowering way. And then you get 9 months of coaching on top of that, so it's a whole year. It is an amazing program. Obviously, you can only join when I run it live, so get ready for that. If you want to book a call now so you can talk about whether that might be for you, so that you can get saving, then please do book in, because, well, let's get you sorted. Let's get you chatting and knowing what's a really good option for you. And then lastly, if you wanted to work with me one-to-one, just to let you know, I've got some new smaller packages that I've just created on demand, as well as the one on the website. So I haven't put them up yet. I will get them up. But basically, if you want to just chat about working with me, then book a call. You can just go to my website and do that really, really easily. Okay, I hope that you have an unexpectedly lovely week where you really, really contemplate the idea that overwhelm is optional, and that that's a joyful, empowering thing that is completely within reach for you. Okay, lots of love. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If this resonates with you, please use the like, subscribe and share buttons to help other people find their way here too. And please do go to www.heidimark.co.uk/the 1 minute mark with an E to join my mailing list and receive my free 1 minute life-changing audio practice.